Hello and most welcome to 1837 of the Heidegger series. We will today continue with the article by Francis Weilin, Wittgenstein on Understanding and Emotion, Grammar and Methods. Last time we looked into emotions and how by asking the question, what is emotion? We sort of fixated. Exactly, thank you, Kalle, very good. What is emotion is one that philosophers often ask themselves, as well as more specific questions such as what is fear? What is joy? And further down, this is what characterizes philosophers' thinking. We get a sort of inward thing, and therein stems all the problems of modern philosophy. Problems of epistemology. How do we know if we are inward persons locked in our heads with very little information or knowledge to be gained from the great outsideness? And of course, perception becomes a very odd thing. Perception then comes to mean taking in things from the very outside, owning them, making them a property that we can use and have. We have the camera oscura, the idea that everything comes from somewhere distant into the insideness of the head or the brain, or our perceptive innerness. By repeating the expression of fear and at the same time attending to myself, as it were observing my mind out of the corner of my eye. So that's the method of sufficiency. Very good, Kalle. You can remember that particular one. This is how we gather insideness. Do we really need this insideness? for the terms to work in the ordinary language and in the ordinary interactions. And here we have also another thing that could be problematic, but also solved, that the trees and the sky and the birds make me feel joyful, that they are causative. And here Wittgenstein is meticulous. He says it adds to the picture as a supplement, but it's not what causes it. It is not the origin. Origin is often something that bothers us and causes havoc in our thinking. A true origin is truly mythological, and it takes us away from the reality of everyday life. So I will continue where I left off in 1836. Now, what is the use of the method of meaning consideration? Why does Wittgenstein distinguish between the general case and the concrete case? I think that Wittgenstein has two related aims. One aim concerns asking questions. Wittgenstein is extremely careful about questions. On the one hand, philosophers go astray because they ask the wrong questions. On the other hand, asking the right questions can help to solve philosophical problems. Questions that are general and out of context are wrong questions. They lead us to answers and to mysteries. But concrete questions direct our attention to how words are used in concrete circumstances. And consequently, they can help us see things aright. So the method of meaning consideration has the same effect as that of rule listing. Both make us focus on concrete contexts and uses. Wittgenstein also employs the method of learning consideration in dealing with emotion. This method is shown in the following remarks. Depression is not a bodily feeling, for we do not learn the expression, I feel depressed, in the circumstances that are characteristic of a particular bodily feeling. How do I know that someone is enchanted? How does one learn the linguistic expression of enchantment? You must ask how we learn the expression, isn't that glorious? Which is an expression of enjoyment at all. No one explained it to us by referring to sensations, images, or thoughts that accompany hearing. Nor should we doubt whether he had enjoyed it if he had no account to give of such experiences, though we should, if he showed that he did not understand certain tie-ups. Why does Wittgenstein want to talk about how one learns expressions of emotions when dealing with a problem, whether it refers to a bodily feeling? The answer is this: if one utters an emotion expression, for instance, I'm afraid, he must have learned this expression and knows the meaning. So by considering how he learns the emotion expression, we can get clear about what the meaning is. Now, the idea of the philosophers whom Wittgenstein is targeting, for instance, James, is that an emotion expression refers to a bodily feeling or a set of them. Wittgenstein here in Settle 135 and 168 and 170 points out that we do not learn such an expression this way. Of course, no one teaches me to say, for instance, I'm afraid, when and only when a particular bodily feeling occurs. So when do I say I'm afraid? I cannot be referring to a particular bodily feeling either. How then do we learn an expression of emotion? Well, how do we learn other expressions? Wittgenstein makes many remarks on the learning of expressions. For instance, in other words, when does one say that someone is angry? In such cases, he learns to use the expression, I am angry. But I surely did not learn to use the word unreality to mean a feeling. No, but I learned to use it with a particular meaning, and now I use it spontaneously, like this. One learns the word think. That is its use under certain circumstances, which, however, one does not learn to describe. I just teach him the word comparing. under particular circumstances. He just learns the use of the word under particular circumstances. All these remarks say that we learn an expression of emotion, of comparing, of thinking, etc., under particular circumstances. Wittgenstein also uses the method of use consideration in dealing with emotion, which is shown in the following remarks. What is fear? Well, the manifestation and occasions of fear are as follows. What does to be afraid mean? The expression to be afraid is used in this way. One wonders, what does I am afraid really mean? What do I aim at when I say it? And of course, no answer is forthcoming or only an inadequate one. The question is, in what sort of context does it occur? So the method of learning consideration and that of use consideration have the same function. They direct our attention to the particular circumstances under which an expression is learned and used. And they can help us to see that an emotion expression does not refer to a bodily feeling. The last method which Wittgenstein uses in dealing with emotion, and which I want to discuss, is the one I will call the method of multi-words. This method is seen in ppf 74. After listing some uses of the expression, I am afraid, Wittgenstein goes on to say, it would be possible to imagine people who, as it were, thought much more precisely than we and used different words, where we use only one. Canfield, 2007, identifies 12 different uses of this fear expression. On his interpretation according to Wittgenstein, people who speak precisely might invent 12 different words, for instance, Freda, afraid, Raphael, etc., where we only use one word, afraid. If we agree that this scenario is possible, then we will see that our word afraid can have 12 distinct uses, and we will therefore lose interest in finding the thing which we think our word designates. Hence, Canfield's interpretation, which is that Wittgenstein's use of the method of multi-words is to reject the referential understanding of fear is quite correct. With all the methods described above, Wittgenstein succeeds in showing that an emotion expression does not designate anything. Neither a bodily feeling nor any behavior. Anyone who followed this investigation carefully would in the end agree to this conclusion. But as in the case of understanding, one might still be puzzled. What is an emotion then? What is really going on when one is afraid, etc.? Well, as in the case of understanding, an emotion is not a particular bodily feeling. Or a particular set of them. Whether someone is in fear, for example, is determined by the context. A person who is really in fear and a person who is pretending to be in fear may have exactly the same symptoms. the difference between real fear and pretended fear may lie in the context. The following long passage illustrates some of the methods and the conclusion as well. The conclusion well. A poem makes an impression on us as we read it. Do you feel the same while you read it as when you read something indifferent? How have I learned to answer this question? Perhaps I shall say, of course not. Which is as much to say, this takes hold of me and the other not. I experience something different. And what kind of thing? I can give no satisfactory answer. For the answer I give is not in itself of any importance. But didn't you enjoy it during the reading? Of course, for the opposite answer would mean I enjoyed it earlier or later. And I do not want to say that. But now surely you remember sensations and images as you read, and they are such as to connect up with the enjoyment, with the impression. But they got their significance only from the surroundings, through the reading of this poem, from my familiarity with its language, with its meter, and with innumerable associations. We often have the experience of enjoying a poem. But what is enjoyment, we wonder? We are inclined to think that enjoyment is a specific experience. But if we look at the sensations, images, bodily feelings, etc., which occur when we enjoy a poem, we cannot find any satisfactory candidate. Any candidate is in itself of no importance, because it cannot be identified with enjoyment. A person may have this sensation or image or bodily feeling without being in enjoyment. Having any set of these symptoms does not guarantee that the person is in enjoyment. A person with certain sensations and images can be said to be in enjoyment only in a concrete context, when he knows the language and its meter and is reading the poem and so forth. Conclusion. In this paper, I examined the grammar and methods Wittgenstein uses in the investigation of sudden understanding and emotion. In both cases, Wittgenstein focuses on one type of grammatical rules, circumstantial rules, which specify the circumstances under which a word or an expression is used. In both cases, he employs a set of methods for obtaining a surveyable representation of these grammatical rules. He uses the methods of rule listing and of sufficiency to deal with sudden understanding and he also employs them in treating emotion. In dealing with emotion, Wittgenstein tries 3 additional methods. Those of meaning consideration, of learning consideration, and of multiwords. The 2 first methods are not explicitly used in case of sudden understanding. but they are implicitly used. The third method Wittgenstein could also use in dealing with sudden understanding. He could say that some people who speak more precisely might employ at least 4 different words for understanding. To remove the temptation to think that understanding is a particular mental process. These methods are not completely different from one another. Rather, they reflect Wittgenstein's looking at grammar from different viewpoints, such as the speaker's meaning, language learning, and language use. They have the same function, that is to arrive at the survivable representation of grammar and to dissolve philosophical problems. How gallant. I think that is an excellent stopping point. We have read quite enough. (1837). Feel a bit condensed, the text, and go back for some quotes here. Obviously, page 12, the cite from Zettel. I will not reread it. It's on top of the column, left column. This is to give you a hint here. No one explained it to us by referring to sensations, images, or thoughts that accompany hearing. So this is another perspective, but the same thing as the Augustinian ostensive definition. You can't point it out. You cannot say this is an emotion or that caused this, or that is the original of that. So you see here family resemblance once more, also here in emotions. You do not learn emotions when young by an adult showing them to you or pointing them out. This is anger. It simply doesn't happen that way. And at the bottom here on the same column, if we may, if you could go down to the bottom of that column. One learns the word think, that is, its use under certain circumstances, which, however, one does not learn to describe. There is no description here. It's nonsensical in this particular circumstance to speak of a description. You are in the circumstance, the context with all the relations. So what are the contexts? Well, let's jump to the next page and have a look at that. This last quote from PPF. The question is, in what sort of context does it occur? Where can we find it? So the method, Francis Weiling continues, and this is about the 5th paragraph here. So the method of learning consideration and that of use consideration can have the same function. They direct our attention to the particular circumstances under which an expression is learned and used, and they can help us to see that an emotion expression does not refer to a bodily feeling. We can add to that the context is obviously, as we see it now, not inside nor fully outside. It doesn't take those questions at all. Where is it? How is it? What is it? And then we have this very nice method of Wittgenstein, multi-words. Canfield, who's getting more and more interesting, I think, invented or referred to that we can make 12 different words of afraid, like Freda, afraid, Raphaid, and so on and so on. A word is then shown to have so many meanings, so it refutes the idea of a single meaningness. And once that is refuted, we cannot ask the question, what is afraid? Do you see now? We have 12 different words, you cannot ask that question. This is a pharmacon made by Wittgenstein to help us see the way out of the fly bottle. And if we go to page 13, right column, the 3 lines before the conclusion. A person with certain sensations and images can be said to be in an enjoyment only in a concrete context. For instance, when he knows the language and its meter, is reading the poem and so forth. You need to know the language, you need to know the meter. It is this gazillion of information bits that you are in possession of. Your Geschichte, as I said in the last lecture, the background is always ignored in the question, what is emotion or where is it? But that's the background is enormous. It's all the history that has taken part before. And the sheer multitude of meaning a word can have, or meanings, goes to show they've been around for a long while. They are not new inventions. And the many meanings do not stop a word from being one. That's another important point. Remember, only plurality can show singularity. I think that was from Heraclitus. But it can here be recycled. Dear colleague Kalle, do step in.
Thank you, thank you. Let me go to page 11, I think. So we could even begin here. Repeat a little bit this. So the point is, trees, if I'm happy, trees are not causative. Trees do not designate origin. This seems like a banal consideration from Wittgenstein, but it's very important.
Indeed, it's very important.
And Wittgenstein is also a little bit nasty. Why is he nasty? Because he makes psychologists unemployed. Very nasty boy. So why is this so? Let's say, let me take an extreme example. Let's say you have been raped as a child, you hardly remember anything of that. Then you have psychologists who try to, so to say, step in and find the primary cause in your subconscious mind.
Yes.
But Wittgenstein here undermines this concept. There is no primal cause. There are no trees, so to say. No. So to think that Draper would be primal cause is a misstep. Actually, is really jumping over one step. The first step is actually the context, and here actually a policeman would do a better job, I think, than a psychologist, because a policeman understands you need a context, while psychologists would go after the primal cause. Do you agree with me?
Yes, it's very, very good, very good. The psychologist and the Bible interpreter makes the same fault, looking for an original cause, and as well classical physics looking for Big Bang. It's very similar.
Let's say that you are alcoholic or I am alcoholic, and it's easy. You can try to find the primal cause, but we could say in this case it depends on the context. If you grow up in a bad home, let's say in a bad environment, in one way it's wrong to say that is the primal cause. The primal cause is the context. And let me give an example here. Let me go down here. For instance, here. For instance, so we should always use this phrase. In what sort of context does it occur?
Yes.
So
the proper question is, in what sort of context does it occur? Very good.
So it's about surroundings. Surroundings is another word if you want. It's not surroundings in the sense of primal cause, but surroundings in the sense of interactions, perhaps.
Yes, all the relations, all of Geschichte, all those billions and billions of things. So what the psychologist is doing is, by the model of technology, applying that wrongfully and saying that emotions are things. Like in classical physics, we say an atom is a thing, which is pretty correct in classical physics. But what is an emotion is not the correct question.
And let me see here. So he's targeting James and others. So I think this is very important to help you to help us understand. So when I do say I'm afraid, I cannot be referring to a particular bodily feeling either, because it's not in that way that we have learned. Because I'm not thinking, it depends on my food that I'm afraid. Let's see, where did we have that? So it's not linked to a particular particular part of the body.
No, it's not reducible to an original body state.
So it's like we conclude the last part. It's about exclamations. I am afraid. That's so I think everything is more like exclamations. That's what he wants to say. And it's like sudden realizations, like a heureka.
Oh yeah, very good. Yeah, definitely.
And something else here. Let me see. I put about the key pretending. Another thing here. Yes. So what's just this phrase? A person who is really in fear and a person who is pretending to be fear, they have exactly the same symptoms.
Yeah.
So this I would return to the topic of, or rather the idiom or the advice: fake it until you make it. And this shows there is no difference at all between faking and actually being happy or being afraid. It's very difficult in real life. Yes, okay. Let's say you are complimenting somebody of this person's new hairstyle or whatever, clothing, or how you perhaps a little bit faking, but you are also trying to be honest in one way. So where do you try the line? If you get my point, I think it's very difficult to. Or let's say that you pray, you thank God for this and that. You are both honest and not honest, because you know that you should be grateful anyhow.
Yes. Well, indeed, yeah.
Because complaining doesn't lead anywhere. So you force yourself to be grateful, so to say. Let's say even self-help gurus say that you should have that, like say a diary, where you write down, I'm grateful for this and that and that. Nobody advises you should write down your complaints.
No, I think you should be grateful, because what Wittgenstein is opening up to is that you are important as an observer and you are in charge of yourself. It's pretty much close to Lisa Bartlett Fieldman, I think her name was, that emotions are under your control to a degree at least. And you are not the victim of emotions just being there as some sort of things you can't avoid.
This paper actually helped me to understand something. I will share very quickly a paper with you. Let me see. Let me see. Here. I think this is rather funny, actually. This has the. Do you see? It's a paper by Rolfs and Löfstedt.
Oh, yeah.
And the title is "This was the Angry Exorcist on the connection between healing and strong emotions in the Gospels." I might be wrong, but I think that Löfstedt is implying that being angry, it helps, so to say, to heal the to be angry is
I do agree. Yeah, certain instances, it's very fit to be angry, and you can learn to become angry. You learned, you know, sort of, you have the ABC, if you get my drift, of being angry, but you need to train it or learn it more. Yeah,
No,
definitely.
my point is a little bit different, Hans, actually. And my point is that it's implied here by Torsten Löfstedt that being angry is causative. That is, that the reason that Jesus was able to heal was that he was angry. That is, this anger, so to say, dispelled sickness.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay. I misunderstood you. So this is actually, and I think Wittgenstein and Francis Eileen helps us actually to see this is a misunderstanding caused by psychology. You understand?
Yeah, and you can even go so far to say the misunderstanding is before psychology, but it's used by psychology. Or yeah, definitely.
Yes, I remember. I will not reveal the name, but there was actually a psychologist that I know who said that this person believes in exorcism, but this is exorcism in the sense, let's say that you this psychologist recommends this person to write down her client's problem on a paper. Okay, so this person, this client wrote down her or his problem on a paper, and then the psychologist say, now the problem was on the paper, so the psychologist said, tear it in pieces, this paper,
Okay.
and throw it in the fire.
Oh, okay.
And this was so-called exorcism. You understand?
I see.
So this was an exorcism in modern sense, in a modern Jungian sense, an exorcism in Jungian sense. That is, you write down your problem on a paper, then you tear the paper in pieces, and then you throw it in fire, and this would help you to heal. So it's a variant of this idea here. So it would be causative. But I think Wittgenstein shows that it doesn't really work that way. I don't know. Perhaps I'm reading too much into this, but
yes, my guess would be that. But it's quite interesting. Thank you for bringing that up, Kalle. And
okay,
I think we need to end here. Thank you very much for your comments, Kalle.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening in, everyone. Have a very pleasant morning, evening, or night, wherever you are. And I say bye-bye for now.